Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. My guest today is Jarom Harlan. So I've started listening to this other podcast called the Comeback Podcast. Jarom would be a great example of one of those who's come back. I love talking with him and just feeling how much his actual conversion has changed him and how he sees that it brings him so much more peace and direction, not just spiritually, but like in life. I love that so much. I love that. And I'm so grateful that he's able to articulate that through this conversation. I love that he loves who he is and loves his family, both the parents who raised him and the family that he has now. And I love how his family is part of all of his story. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Jarom. I am on the phone tonight with Jarom Harlan. We've never met in person, but I found him on Facebook on an old Native church group. So we've never met, and that's how I found him. But Jarom, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks our language, and some languages are dead.
Yeah. Aho ijaje wowitate konliskimale huakse ijaje wowitate Jarom Harlan. And I just said, in my native language, the Omaha language, I said, hello, my name is Walking Thunder, part of the Thunder Clan, this Dashandas. And I said, my white man name is Jarom Harlan.
That's awesome. How many clans are there in Omaha?
10, I think.
That's something that I have never really looked into, but there's some tribes that have many, many, many clans, like the Navajo, and some that have just, like what you just said, probably 10 or so. So that's interesting. Jarom, would you please share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It can be pretty much anything, a story, a celebration, a way of life, a ceremony. What do you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel?
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this plenty of times in your interviews. I've heard it quite a bit while listening to them, but prayer is definitely one that my culture still does today. Like, they, before every tribal council meeting or before any meeting that we have, we start in prayer. An elder of the meeting or the group will offer the prayer, and whether it be in the language or in English, that's how they do it. So being able to come back home and work after graduating college, it was super unique, and I really loved it to have that opportunity to come in and see that we still start our meetings with prayer and see, everyone stand up and respect that, and, our Creator, our Father in heaven. And another thing for sure, personally for myself, is my personal revelation through the visions of dreams that I have. And I think that's something that, I'm able to receive my path, my knowledge, and make sure it's reassured is through those visions and dreams that I receive.
That's awesome. Yeah, you are definitely not the first, and I hope that you're not the last who talks about prayer. Thank you. Yeah, do you think that that helps the tribal council to try to make better decisions when they have that founding, when they start their meetings like that?
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I'd like to hope so, but I do appreciate how, that part in our culture is still recognized, is still really prevalent in the work that we do, in the everyday work down there.
Yeah. So, do you live on or near the Omaha reservation?
I live near it. Yes, I grew up living on it, out in the country. I don't know if you know the demographics of the Omaha tribe. It's fairly small. Has some small towns, rural communities that are within the Omaha Tribal Reservation. The main headquarter offices is located in Macy, Nebraska. Then we have smaller little towns: Walt Hill, Nebraska; Rosalie, Pender. Those are just little small towns. Now I'm talking about like 900 in a town, maybe 200 in another. I mean, they're super desolate.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town, not that small. Like mine was always hovered between 1800 and 2000. So I get the small town thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, were you raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes, we were. Um, my grandparents, both my father and my mother's side, are the ones who, I guess, were the converts for my family. My grandma Rose on my dad's side, and then she, went to church and brought my dad and my aunts and my uncles with her. And on my mom's side, down in Texas, that same similar with how my mom was too. And then they met in BYU. My dad had a previous marriage when he was young, super young. So my four older brother or sisters and brother come from them, but I think my dad was about 22 or 23 when he had that divorce, super young, and then he had those four, went out to BYU and met my mother, and with her we had eight of us, and they named us all names out of the Book of Mormon. So I say we were pretty well raised in the church with all our names, and they were unique names. People always struggled with them.
Yeah.
Mosiah, Nephi, they call him Nephi, Benjamin, Jacob, Jarom. No one ever got my name right, ever. So, and it was super funny, speaking with you. I was like, wow, she knows my name. You know,
Yeah.
I've met church people who had never had that. So,
Yeah.
or
I have a brother. I was telling you that my brother that passed, his name was Jarom, and he had people, members of the church, who never got his name right. He's like, "How do you what? You're a member of the church. You have the Book of Mormon. How do you not know my name?"
yes, it's funny. And then yeah, then we have Moroni, Soraya, Rebecca. So yeah, we have a lot.
That's so cool. You were raised there with your family. Did you grow up with the four older ones too?
Yes, yep. They're older. I think for me about 15 years older than me. So they were in their teens when I was being born and super young, but I've always I mean they always looked after us, and they were just always there, my brother and sisters for sure. And then they've had kids that are around similar to our age. So we grew up with them, pretty much being like another little brother or sister, just more nephews and nieces to hang out with. But yeah.
That's I love that. So you were telling me that you grew up on the res, but you didn't go to school on the res. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we we grew up on, say, about 80 acres that my dad has of, country farmland. And, when that enactment came on our tribe where these families got portions of land, designated to families and stuff, my grandpa didn't sell his. And, he said, well, this is one thing that I always want my kids to have is, a piece of land and a place to call home. So when my dad, moved back with my mom, he put a home site out there, a homestead on that land, and it's right next to where his old house was. So growing up, in such a big family, we were fairly poor, and I didn't know really what poor was because I just lived in it. But being my age now and seeing how expensive children are with having some of my own, and I'm always asking my mother, like, wow, how'd you guys do it with 12 kids? You know, and then I just think back to my times of growing up. I was like, well, shoot, I never even left that place. I've never went to the city, maybe once or twice a year around Christmas or something. And I always tease them now. I was like, yeah, I was like, I grew up outside because that's where we're outside. We're playing in that acreage and getting lost in it. We had creeks and streams and forests, and when it's harvest time, we had mazes. We make our own corn mazes out there, and just loved it. That was life. We didn't have much, but we definitely were rich in love. And that's what we had. We relied on each other a lot, and we're super close family, big family for sure. But that's what we had. So growing up that way, my dad was big on education. He got his degree from BYU and political science, and then social work for my mother out at BYU. And so when we were all growing up, I think he learned, when he sent the older ones to school down in Macy, it was just a little more difficult. And I think he wanted us, younger eight to go to school off the res, I guess. We used to call it the farming school, the farmer school. We were the only minorities there going to this school with all these, rich farm kids, definitely. And, I guess growing up was with my friends that, entering kindergarten with, I was blessed with because they, when I went to college with them and I went and had experiences, they're like, we don't see you as, being different, even though it's still prevalent in this area where we live of racism and that kind of, situations. They just didn't see it. They're like, with me at least, but I know when others would come in, they'd be like, oh, they would say the things, and so it's just different, I guess. I think just growing up with it and growing up with those kids where, in small town USA, you have those small, everyone goes to the football games, everyone goes to the basketball games, everyone knows who, and I loved it. I loved growing up in that type of atmosphere. I have lifelong friends that, we pick up where we left off if we didn't see each other for months or even a year, and some of my best friends. I got married out in Utah with my wife. They all drove out in a winter storm. My wife and I got married in the end of November. And I remember her grandparents saying, these are your friends, man. These are some good buddies of yours. If they drove through that winter storm that just happened. And I was like, I know. I was like, these guys are crazy. But they all just piled in and they're like, we got to get out there. That's where, I speaking to my wife, she's like, well, she's from Orem. She's like, I went to school with, geez, I don't know, 1,800 kids or whatever. Those schools are huge there. It's like, that's two of my towns. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. But, and she's like, I didn't keep friends like you. She's like, I'm thankful for that you got those friends, those lifelong friends. And I'm thankful for it. But, you know, um, growing up there and then being native back on the reservation, we try to, do as much as we can with our tribe. And we had a ward there, or a branch, I would call it. It wasn't even a ward, it was small. It was the tribal branch. And it was located in Macy, and everyone knew us there as, the Harlan family being members because we always were, we were pretty much the only active, members that were there every Sunday doing all the Wednesday activities, youth activities, all that stuff. So they knew who we were, around the area on the reservation.
Yeah. So, how many of your siblings went on missions, and did you go on a mission?
Half of us, yeah, yep. Um, two oldest brothers did. Um, the older sisters didn't, and then the two older brothers right above me didn't, but then I did, And then my little brother Mosiah, right underneath me, didn't. He got married right out of high school with his high school sweetheart, so they didn't. And then um, my sister Soraya Moroni, they it's a cool story. We all actually went out at the same time.
No way.
Yeah, because I was telling you earlier about what happened, in my life and how I was able to go on a mission later on in life than a usual missionary. So we all submitted our papers at the same time, and we all left at the same time, or fairly close to it. Yeah. And then my youngest sister Rebecca, she did it.
I think that's so great. Just think of the influence that your family has made in the world. Like, think of the influence your grandparents have made in the world by choosing to become members of the church.
For real, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So yeah, why was it harder for you to get out there on the mission? What changed your mind about going, since you at first seemed like you weren't going to go?
Yeah. So, giving a little bit of background of who Jarom Harlan is. At that time in high school and stuff, like how I said, our family was some of the only active members on the reservation. So our ward was super small. We had a lot of people that come down from the stake that would help with callings and stuff like that, or the wards north of us in the city where I'm at now. They'd always come down and help with callings and stuff, and try to, I guess, get more of our reservation and our members to come back. Actually, a lot of my brothers and sisters on the reservation, they're members. They're just inactive, but a lot of them are, and it's super interesting. I don't know what really happened, but I would love to see them all come back. That'd be a sight to see for sure. But yeah, so it was hard, having the influence of my friends, where I was going to school off the reservation, and then trying to come back and, be a good member at that time. I tried my hardest for sure, all the way until I was ready to go to college, out of high school. And I remember a conversation I had with my mother. I've always been close with my parents. I could always just open up and talk to them. But my mother, she's always had that. She's the rock of our family when it comes to church and her testimony. And she, would tell me things of what she wished she would see. I'd ask her, like, what is something you'd want? You know, I think that's just something that we've grown up as, being such a big family. Materialistic things weren't too important for us. On our birthdays, we really wouldn't get gifts. My mother would cook us a dinner or something. What's your favorite food? She'd cook it and stuff like that. So I asked my mother one time for Christmas. I said, what do you want for Christmas? And she started to cry. She said, I want all my kids to be sitting on that bench with me, you know, at church. I like started to tear up. I was like, wow. I said, that's such a good gift. I wish I could give that to her. And I remember she asked me, she said, so what do you want to do, son? She's like, do you want to go to college, or do you want to go on your mission? At that time, when she asked me that question, I wasn't ready for a mission. I don't think I even read the Book of Mormon completely through, and really understood it. I didn't really understand, the covenants and things of what it takes, I guess, to be a good worthy missionary at that time. And so I chose college, and she was fine with it. That's something I feel I was super thankful for my parents to give us that agency. And they said, well, no matter what decision you make, we're always going to love you. We're always going to be here. And my father would always say, this is always home. Come home. Don't worry, this is always going to be home. So it's like, all right. So, education was always instilled in us. So I always laugh, and my friends even laugh, and they wrote papers on me in their college theses and stuff about how many colleges I went to and why I just kept going to college. And I guess, I was always trying to just find the life of the party. I always wanted to just follow where my excitement was or where my next adventure was. So right after high school, I went immediately to the University of Lincoln down in Lincoln, Nebraska. Went to UNL. I was a Cornhusker for a little bit, and I was about to join a fraternity house, and then I got an acceptance letter saying, "Hey, you got into this college out in Colorado." And I was like, "Dude, I need to go to Colorado. I need to leave Nebraska." There's always that brother who just wanted to get out and do what I wanted, and so I took off to Fort Lewis College out in Durango and loved it. Snowboarded, taught myself how to snowboard. Went out with one of my older brothers that I really looked up to, my brother Ben, and brought my brother Nephi along with us. He was back from his mission, and he's like, "Well, I'll try it with you guys," and he was going to be like the one. He's always had his head on straight, so he was the one that we would go to if we needed help. We still do. We still go to Nephi. He's funny, but yeah. So we went out there. I got into trouble, obviously. Had a little bit way too much fun, and my father and them were upset, like, "Hey, you need to come back." And I was like, "Okay." So me and Ben moved back and went to University of Omaha, and went there. And I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna get back out to Colorado. I miss it." So I went back out there again. Got in trouble with the law a little bit. That year, I was 21. Made some decisions that I shouldn't have done, and my father was upset again. He's like, "No, you're moving back home. That's it. That freedom's a little too much for you." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I should probably move back home." So then I moved back to Lincoln and moved in with a couple of my buddies there. And I'm still just doing my thing, still going to school because my dad was always like, "Go to school, go to school. You got to get the education." I'm like, "You're right, I do." And by that time, my little brother Mosiah and his wife Demi, they were in college, and they lived in Wayne, Nebraska. It's this little smaller college town. And I was like, I'm gonna move in with them. I said, I feel, and they're like, "You come back here." And I had a couple of good friends going to school there, and they're like, "You need to come back here and help us," because they had their first daughter and stuff. And that's where everything started to change for me, because I was about 23, I think, and I didn't graduate yet because I moved so much, and my credits weren't, I guess, going as they should. I've always had so many credits, but they weren't. I didn't realize that, but they'd always put you into a new curriculum, or they always put you into a new plan, a program, and it pretty much we're starting over all the time. That's just the universities getting their way of money. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "How much in debt am I, for doing all this?" And that's my fault. But I moved back there, and I was, I don't, I don't even know how to explain it really, but my friends, I was ending the end of my senior year, and I remember talking to my advisor, and they're like, "Hey, you only have 6 more credits left, and you're going to graduate this spring, and this and that." And I remember speaking with the Marine officers. I had a decision. Like, I really was always interested in the military. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna talk to these guys. I feel like that should be my next step. I need to do something." Like I said, I was always on the move. I always wanted to do something. And so I started to talk to these Marine officers, and a couple of my buddies from Lincoln were like, "Hey man, we're gonna be hiring for this job, at Complete Nutrition, and they're looking for a new manager here in this area. Like, you should go apply." Because I was always into that, just trying to stay fit and health and stuff like that. And I was like, "Okay, cool, I should." So I took off, and this was around winter break. And I remember going to this interview, and I was driving down the road, and it was starting to snow, and it started to snow really bad. And as I was traveling down this road, I for some reason just started to think about my life a lot, and started to think about, the church, and things I didn't think about in a long time. And I was like, "Man, what should my next move be? Should it be this complete nutrition, store, or should I do the Marines? What should I do? And, you know, I, for some reason, I heard something vividly clear, and I started to get worried and nervous because I was going down the interstate pretty fast, or like down this highway pretty fast, and it's getting slick out and it's slushy and the snow's coming down. And something said, don't slow down. And I was like, what? And then I was like, okay. So then I didn't slow down. I'm going pretty fast. I started getting nervous. I was like, well, I need to get behind this big truck because I don't want to be in front of it if, I hit a patch of ice or something in this truck. There's a big semi next to me and it's carrying this big crane. And then something again said, don't get behind that truck. And I was like, what? And I got like these big goosebumps. And I was like, what? And what am I listening? Like, what is this? And so I'm just driving, and then we go underneath this overpass, and I just hear this loud crack, like, "Ugh." And immediately I see things in slow motion. That semi clipped the top of the bridge, and that crane went right behind it, like, bam, flipped backwards, landed right where I would have been. The semis chains off that thing were just flying in front of me, and it started to, I guess, jackknife, and I was just able to miss right out of there. Like, with all I got was like a broken blinker light out of all that. And I got over and I pulled over to the side of the road in the middle of the median, and I just hear these cars behind me just hitting it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what just happened? I was like, wow. And I remember jumping out. I'm just like shaking at that time. And immediately I call my little sister. I was super close with one of my little sisters, and her name's Soraya, and she's out at BYU at this time. And I'm like, Soraya, I was like, man, I just died. I was like, I almost could have like crashed and died right now. And first thing she says is like, Jarom, where are you in life? What is your plan? She's like, why did you get another day? She's like, you need to go pray, and seriously pray and ask our Father in heaven why. And I was like, you're right. You're right. I do, because for some reason, something told me, and something, was telling me what to do. And I listened, and I was like, wow, okay. So I called that company, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna come to the interview. Sorry. I just got out of a big car wreck, and I'm not gonna be able to do this. Like, okay, we'll reschedule. And it was right around New Year's, and I remember going back home and talking to my little brother and my sister-in-law, and what all happened. And I seriously just went down and prayed. For the first time in my life, I actually truly prayed, and I wanted to know why. I wanted to know why I was given another day and another chance to live, because I just saw it flash before my eyes on what could have happened if I didn't listen. And I remember a day passes, 2 days pass, and we get this knock on the door. And there was a knock on this door by this guy who never met in my life, never seen him. And he comes up to the door and he's like, hey, I know this is super weird, and I know you guys don't know me, but I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I go to the Norfolk ward, and it's another town away. And he's like, um, he's like, I have a message I need to share with you guys. And I just look at my brother and I start laughing. I'm like, yeah, man, we're members. I was like, yeah. I was like, we're members. We just haven't gone. I was like, I didn't even know there was a ward in Norfolk. And he just started laughing, and he's like, oh, okay, so you guys do know. I was like, yeah, actually, my name's Jarom, and this is Mosiah. And they're like, oh, wow, okay. He's like, wow, you guys are members. And he just sits down and he's like, I drive by this house like every day. And for some reason, I've been getting this strong prompting and this strong feeling to stop. But he's like, today I couldn't take it. I had to get out. I had to stop, and I have to come talk to you, and I have to share this message about Christ. And I was like, what? Like, I was like, wow, okay. So I'm sitting there, listening, and, for the first time, I actually realized, and he put it in such basic ways of, you know, this is, Jesus Christ, he's our savior. And I told him what I all went through, and he's, made it just seem so real. He's like, this is your brother Mosiah, right? I was like, yeah. He said, would you die for him? And I started like think, and I was like, well, yeah, of course. He has a family, he has a daughter he just brought into this world. I was like, I don't have anyone, I would. And he's like, that was what Christ did for you, man. He gave you that shot, he gave you that opportunity. And I was like, wow. And he said, he's like, have you ever thought about a mission? And I was like, yeah, but dude, I was like, that was a long time ago. I was like, not, there's no way I could go now. He's like, well, how old are you? I was like, I turned 24 in September. He's like, you got a year. He's like, you could do it. I think cutoff's like 25 or 26. But he's like, how about I put this promise out there? He's like, you come to church on Sunday, you go talk to the bishop. I bet by your next birthday, you'll be able to go on a mission. And it just hit me. I'm like, that's my purpose. That's my reason. I say, that's what I've been praying for. My next answer, my next thing I need to do. So I was like, you know what? It's like, yeah, let's do it. I said, I'll do it. I'll come to church. So we all did. We all started going and talked to the bishop and, did what I needed to do. And I was able to get my mission, paper submitted by like June, I think, or no, July. And then, I was able to get my calling right around my birthday. But what's super interesting is this guy was Navajo. His name was Sam Howard.
You are kidding me.
No, not even lying. It was super, super crazy, man. He and this is even crazier too, I feel like God puts people in our places for sure. Like just to be like, hey, I'm still here. So he lives in Orem, literally a few houses down from where my wife now lives. Like he
Stop
lives in
it.
the same block. Not even lying. After I left my mission, he moved with his wife and like we kept in contact and he's like, hey, I live out in Utah now. I bought the house of my dreams and we're doing really good. I was like, that's so cool, man. I'm happy for you. And I go to church with my wife one day and I'm in this ward and I'm going to with them. And then here he comes running out. I'm like, what? And I find out he lives a few houses away from where my wife's family lives. Yeah, such a small world, but so crazy. But yeah,
Heavenly Father and Jesus must just look down at us sometimes and think, oh, this one's going to be fun. Let's see how they react to this
right,
one.
right, man. So yeah, so that all happens, and I remember when I submit my mission papers, I was like, dude, they're gonna turn me down. I have the biggest doubts, but gained some strong testimony definitely while I was preparing for my mission. Testimony about tithing, and that's one that I've always, have never changed or doubted myself at all. Preparing for my mission was super hard because I had to break all those old habits that I was used to. My addictions. I had to get away from it because I knew I wanted to do this next chapter of my life the best I could and to go actually worthy and do the things I needed to do to get there. And I remember one of my trials was paying tithing, and being a college student and trying to, oh, that was another thing. So after the semester started, I was so fixated on trying to get to my mission. I told the my advisor, it's like, hey, I'm gonna take a pause on those last 6 hours of credit. I'm gonna serve my mission. And my advisor got so mad. Why are you doing this? I was like, because I said I got another calling right now. I need to work as much as I can because I got to save my money to get on this mission. And he was so mad, and I was like, that's my decision right now. I'm sorry. And he's like, when you come back, if you come back, you're gonna have to restart over these classes because they're gonna be so old or something. And I was like, well, then that's what's gonna have to happen. So I started to work, and I was doing, as much work as I can. And I remember paying all my bills and everything at one time, and I remember I had like $20 left, and I should have paid my tithing first, but being young and naive at that time, I didn't. And I was like, okay, I need to pay this $20 because I just got my little $200 check. I was cleaning carpets for this carpet company, and he pays us weekly. And I was like, okay, I need to pay this or put gas in my truck. And it was it was obvious a no-brainer. I went and I paid my tithing. But I remember leaving church, I was like, and the church from Wayne to Norfolk was kind of far, I think like 40-minute drive, something like that. And I was like, man, I'm gonna be going to work on fumes. I don't know how I'm gonna to get back home and yet alone eat this week. I'm like, what am I gonna do for lunch? Like, yeah, I live with my brother, but I always still, try to help out and, pay my part. And I was like, man, I said, I don't know. I was like, I've got to pay it though. I gotta make sure I pay my tithing and I'm gonna receive those blessings that I need. And I remember I load up into the truck that for that day for work and I get to my first spot and I do my job and the guy runs out and he says, here you go, man. And he gave me a tip, a $20 tip. And I was like, what's this? And I never got tips before this. He's like, you just did a good job. He's like, here, just gave it to me. And I remember sitting in the car and I just started crying. I was like, wow, you know, that's what I needed. I needed this. And that was my decision. Should I pay or not? And I got it. And then the next house I went to, guy came out, gave me a $10 tip. I was like, wow, there's lunch. I was like, what? Like, it was so crazy. I had all these testimony builders where I was like, I have to remember to pay tithing now. I can never not pay tithing because I know for a fact that once you do, you will receive those blessings. So that was something I remember taking with me on my mission, those experiences, those little things that happen. And so I submitted my papers in July, and I remember putting on a little sticky note when I sent my paper in. I said, my brother and my sister are also putting in their papers. I said, it would be super neat if we can all get our callings at the same time. If not, don't worry. And I put it in my papers and I sent it out. And I was so worried. I was like, dude, they're going to turn me down. I'm too old for this. I was like, all the guys are young. I was like, that's why it's taking so long. I don't think we got it back for like 6 weeks, something like that.
Whoa.
It took so
Oh my
long, and I
word.
was so worried. I was like, oh man, they're like, there's no way. But I remember having so I was talking to you before about dreams and visions and gifts, that for me that I receive, and I know a few people in my family also have these gifts. One of my gifts is visions in my dreams, and I'm able to speak with, other people, I guess, in these dreams. And I remember this vividly. I had a dream where there was this big map and there was this guy speaking with me. I couldn't see him, but we were talking, we're having this conversation. And he said, I'm having a hard time putting you in your mission calling. He said, if you go to Vancouver, Canada, you're going to love it. You're going to do good, but there's a chance that your friends are going to come up and see you and distract you. He said, but I also could put you in Mexico. He said, this is going to be hard. It's going to really challenge you. But the upside is you're going to get another language. And he's like, and the other part of this is your brother's in the exact same boat. Your brother will do really good in Mexico, but it's going to be hard for him in Canada. And he's like, so what do you think? Where do you want to go? And I was like, immediately, I thought, like, yeah, if I go to Canada, my friends are going to come up because they're going to want to go snowboarding. And I'm like, that's not going to be a mission. I don't want to, break those rules. I can't. I said, but Mexico, I can learn a language. I was like, knowing me, I'm probably going to need that. I was like, okay, give me Mexico and give him Canada. Even though it's going to be hard for him, I was like, I know he can do it. He's my little brother. It's Moroni. He'll do it. And I woke up. Guess where we got our mission calls on, when we got our papers. I got my mission call to Leon, Guanajuato, Mexico, and my brother got his mission call to Vancouver, Canada. And I was like, what? I just started crying. I was like, I had this dream. I told, my mom and my brothers and my sisters. I've always had those dreams, so they didn't doubt it. They're just like, what? And I was like, wow. Like, I was like, what is this? Like, wow, that was so surreal. Like, it was crazy. And, I've had more dreams where I was able to talk to people that, help me and, when I really need them. And I feel, those are really sacred to me, personal revelation for sure that I needed, and those messengers to come speak to me at those times when I struggle, times when I need that comfort.
Wow. And so you went when you were like 25?
Yeah. I actually got my mission call on my birthday. On my 25th birthday, I got my mission call. And it was to my parents' house. So I'm living in Wayne, which is about an hour from my parents' house. And I remember they called, Jaron, we got your papers. I was like, don't open them. I was like, I'm coming. I called my brother. She's like, okay. My mom's like, okay, we'll get all the family here and everyone. I don't know what it is, man, but when you get those mission calls, everyone's in tears. Everyone just feels love. It's so happy. Like, I loved it. It was just so cool. I remember my nephews there. They were like, I want to go on a mission. I want to go. I don't know. It was just super cool because you just don't see that much. I didn't feel that in such a long time. Our family's so big, but we also have, our struggles, and we have our times where, we're distant. But I remember that time everyone came together and everyone was happy, and the house was just full of love at that time.
That's that's so cool. So you served a mission. Okay, so you went to UVU when you came back and you met your wife there. And she's not native, and yet you've taken her back to Nebraska to be near your reservation.
Yep. Yeah, I was working at Zales in the Orem Mall, and she was one of those little kiosk girls that was giving out green tea. And I was like, you know, who's this young girl over here? So I was like, I'm gonna go talk to her. And a lot of my friends, that were there, they were super nice, and everyone's members there. Everyone's just so nice and loving. I was going to the Native American board there in Provo.
Oh, the Franklin Ward.
Right. Yep. That's where my brothers and I were going. So yeah, they all went to BYU. Moroni, Soraya, Rebecca. They were all able to go to school after our missions. Everyone was there. And I was like, I don't know, man. BYU is just not me. That's just me, though. That's just my style. I was like, I'm going to go to UVU. So I went to UVU for some reason, thinking that it was going to be cheaper, and it wasn't. It was so expensive. I should have looked into that. But the tuition was insane. And, compared to BYU, I should have went to BYU. But yeah, so I go there and get back into school, which was super cool because, I didn't graduate when I should have. But I was blessed because that's where I met my wife. I met her out in Utah, and I brought her home actually, and that's when I knew if I could bring her home and show her the reservation and show her where I come from, this poor, humble, you know, Indian community, area. Like, she's like, I heard about natives in books, but I didn't know that it's like this, and the Omaha tribe's super poor tribe. And, it's hard to see hope there. It's hard to see prosperity right now. It's in a dark place, and it's sad. So knowing that if I could bring her home and she loves me and accepts me for who I am, then she's got to be the one, you know. And because I've brought other girls home, and they were like, oh yeah, I don't know, they just kind of felt, I guess, awkward or uncomfortable. But Alyssa did it. She just loved it. She loved my family. She loved everything about it. And that just like made me fall so much more in love with her, because I was like, wow, she loves me for me. I'm showing her the truth. I'm showing her the raw Chatham right here. My family, my secrets, the things that small people see, rare, unless you're around the area and you've known me, grown up with me, you're going to see it. But otherwise, you won't see that part of me. You won't see my home and where I had to come up and grow up in. And so making those trips home, visiting with her. We got married, and then civilly, and then we got married in the Timpanogos temple the year later. Um, she got her endowments and everything, and we're able to go. But yeah, when it's a marriage. It's hard for sure. We have our issues on our raising kids. It's something else, but we knew that our decision to move back home would be the best decision for us. Utah was expensive for us at being a young couple and trying to start a family out there. It was super expensive. So we were able to come back and blessed to find a house outside of the reservation, because the reservation, it's lack of housing, and it's hard to really get anything down there. But I knew I needed to come back home and help my people. And that's what my father instilled in us, was to come home and get educated and come back and help your people, he'd always say.
That's awesome. Do you want to tell us what you do to help your people before we go to the last question?
Yeah, so I worked in quite a few positions. When I first started, I started in the finance office of my tribe as just a staff accountant, and then quickly moved up to different positions, a financial specialist, and then I moved to a grant contract administrator, overseeing BIA contracts, and then they moved me to the real estate director for my tribe, and I was there for a couple of years. And um, there I found, a lot of discrepancies that was going on with our leasees, which is those farmers, that are non-native, and we're actually in a big legal course now because some people have been not paying their share of lease money with the tribe, and they owe us about $1.2 million, and it's a big lawsuit coming up right now.
Oof.
Yeah, and if I feel like if I wasn't in those positions, they would have continued to do that. And since I did that, the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Department of Interior, saw the work I was doing, and they reached out and was like, "Hey, Jarom, we're going to get a position open. We would like for you to come here." And at that time, the council, it was pretty much against my family for the things we're finding. We're finding a lot of things, a lot of discrepancies that shouldn't be happening and going on from our own leaders of the tribe. So they're upset with my family right now, but all we're trying to do is do right and make things better for our people who are struggling there. So I took them on that offer, and I'm currently now at the BIA as the real estate specialist, or realty specialist generalist, and I'm helping the tribes in Nebraska of the Omaha tribe, the Winnebago tribe, and the Santee Sioux tribe with all of their um, trust account issues and trust land and all of that. It's a lot, but I love it. I feel like this is a reason why I came home. There's another good story and vision and dream I could go on about, but I think we gotta make this kind of short.
Yeah. You just are such a good storyteller, Jarom. I've enjoyed sitting here listening to this. It's been awesome. But I do have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
Yeah, when I was thinking about this question, um, there's just so much that I appreciate and am blessed to know that I am part of that, that covenant of being in the tribe of Israel, and the book of Enos, and that promise that we get. You can see it, but you can also see how hard it is, for natives and for the Lamanites, because of the addictions, because of the struggle, because of the abuse and the trauma that we've had to go through, as being blessed people, as having that blessing that Enos, prayed for the Lamanites. It's still there. It's hard, but realizing that, hey, you're gonna take these covenants and you're gonna, do what you have to do to receive those blessings. is such an eye opener for me. I struggle every day, with my own sins, and I try my best to be that example and that leader for those who are continuing to look up, for someone, for that light. And I can relate to a lot of people because I've done and been in their shoes. But I know for sure that if, hey man, follow these teachings, follow and do what's right. You know what's right. And once you understand, for me especially, once I've understood who Christ is and his sacrifice that he has done for me, for my family, for you, for your family, for anyone that you truly love, man, how could you not want to do what's right? How can you not want to receive those blessings that are promised for us? That's where I'm like, man, and to know that we are going to continue to receive those blessings is such just, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just go and scream it to everyone, scream it on top of a mountain, they always say, and go and tell these guys, like, hey, just do what's right. Just try your hardest to break these addictions. Try your hardest to overcome this trauma. Go speak with, who you need to, and speak with me if you need to. My tribe is, before COVID, there's the youth were struggling with suicide. And so sad. I'm like, why? What is going on in these homes? What is the adversary doing to my people? Why is he keeping them down? Why? When I can feel that love and I know those blessings, I've seen them. Just listen, follow me. I'm going to help you. I won't take advantage. I won't do it. I just want to help because I love you. That's all I want to do is just help. So, that's why I'm home. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm trying to do this. And that's why I'm continually going to church, trying to better myself every day. So knowing that I'm a part of that tribe, man, that's the best feeling ever, for sure.
Thank you, Jarom, so much truth that you just shared right there. So thank you. So yesterday, Mark and I substituted in Emma's Sunday school class. Emma is my 11-year-old. And there were just 3 girls, Emma and 2 other girls. And we had such a good conversation about the law of Moses and the law of Christ. We were trying to explain that the law of Moses was a lot of written rules, and how the law of Christ was how it was written on your heart. And we ended up having such a good conversation with these 3 girls, and they were willing to ask questions, and they were willing to say that they didn't understand something, and it was so great. And then at the end, we talked about how the law of Moses was a step up to the law of Christ. And we were told them that even now there are some things that we basically live the law of Moses, and we are trying to live better so that we all can live the law of Christ. And I think they really got that. And the one of the girls was like, yeah, it's so good because we have Jesus Christ who can help us get up to that higher law. And I'm like, yes, she totally understood that. And then one of the girls was like, yeah, isn't that mercy? And we're like, yes. And so we talked about mercy and grace, and it was so great. So now my favorite word for today is mercy, because it's been on my mind from this lesson. And grace, the definition that's in my mind all the time is the enabling power of Christ. But I didn't have a definition for mercy off the top of my head. And we defined it together. We looked up a little bit about mercy, but the definition we decided for mercy is compassion in excess. Isn't that so cool? Think about that with Jesus. Compassion in excess. That's exactly him. And combine that with grace, the enabling power of grace of Christ, we can have the promise of a good future, and we can have a promise of a good day now. And I'm so grateful for mercy and grace. And I am so grateful for my Savior. And I hope you're having a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.